Colors are some of the most universal ways that people can communicate with each other, and it's been this way for pretty much as long as humans have been around. It's no wonder, then, that color television was one of the greatest improvements of the past century. We went from silent black and white films with caption slides to read dialogue to immersive sensory experiences within a screen. Already, I bet you're thinking of specific movies that remind you just how valuable color can be. The most famous example of a Technicolor movie is, without a doubt, Wizard of Oz. When I made plans with my family to see Wicked 1 and 2 in theaters, I went back and rewatched Wizard of Oz and the Wicked musical to really get in the spirit of spending 5 hours in a theater staring at Ariana Grande and her weird ginger boyfriend. And Cynthia Erivo, of course. And well, I have a lot of praise for the aesthetics of the Wicked movie, especially the 1920s inspiration and Art Nouveau background design. Compared to the original Wizard of Oz movie starring Judy Garland, it's just so dull. Wicked is not the only film that's fallen victim to this trend. It's become something fairly common to criticize Hollywood for in the past few years, in fact. But many of these arguments focus on the aesthetic value, the decorative purposes color can serve, and the sensory benefits of having that full Technicolor-esque color spectrum. I think that there's an aspect of this phenomenon that people have overlooked. What about the stories? Why is it so important that we keep movies from looking even more dull? Like I already said, there's a lot of aesthetic and psychological benefits to vibrant color grading within film and TV. Color has long since been used to induce different moods, and when combined with lighting, it can help the audience feel a particular way within specific scenes. I already went over this in my video essay about how Resident Evil uses this to scare its players. Warmer, brighter lighting can make an audience feel happy, safe, secure, even nostalgic and sleepy. And then on the other hand, darker and cooler tones have the opposite effect, leaving you scared, depressed, demotivated, or intimidated. Culturally speaking, color also serves a lot of use to remind us of different concepts, even past the emotions and feelings each one can remind us of. There's the classic pink and blue debate for gender, there's red for stop and green for go, and then the impact of color schemes from big brands on our mental image of certain industries. For example, when you think of fast food, the colors red and yellow are very likely to first come to mind. But movies and television aren't just simply ways to entertain our senses of sight, sound, and humor. Don't let Marvel movies fool you, please. They're the first medium to let you use sight to tell a story in such a complex and constantly evolving way, and color plays a very vital role in how these stories can be told. Color can serve as symbolism, foreshadowing, character development and association, and infinite more possibilities depending on what story is being told. I've got some really good examples to go through, and we'll get to them in a second, but for now, here are the overall uses color has in any given movie, or at least any good given movie. Firstly, symbolism, my favorite. This is where those color psychology and moods come into play again. Making a certain object or seeing red, for instance, could symbolize passion, danger, and anger, or more specifically, how Disney animated movies to use neon tones of green quite often in scenes with their villains, to the point where it became stylistic. There's the poisoned apple in Snow White, Maleficent's dragon form and her magic, Scar's weird B.O. fog and his eyes in The Lion King, and so on. Certain characters can also have specific signature colors assigned to them, which not only speaks on the characters themselves, but their psychological standing and what can be associated with them throughout the film. Character development in general is also a very big purpose of color within movies. There's the signature colors, and then any other colors that characters could be styled in to show passing moods or ideas within specific scenes. Consistently using certain colors in relation to a character could also be a way to symbolize or foreshadow their quote-unquote true self if they're being manipulative or going through a process of personal development. Colors can also be used to show alignment between characters, whether or not it's spoken within the script itself. I have 2 really good examples of this to use for later. And finally, colors can really help with the setting and tone of a film, or TV series, or whatever. There's color grading and lighting, like we already discussed. They can help imbue certain emotions for particular scenes, settings, and moods for characters. Using color within settings can also add another layer of depth to character development, especially with bedrooms and homes of characters. For example, the main character's completely purple bedroom in The Secretary, or Barbie's pink dream house. And as a more under-considered detail, the usage of color can also help the audience place the time a story takes place in. The house in Home Alone, for example, is almost exclusively decorated in red and green from head to toe, or I guess from attic to basement, or roof to basement. Either way, there won't be a single scene in the movie where you're not subconsciously reminded, hey, it's Christmas! We're celebrating Christmas right now! Merry Christmas! On the other hand, another really famous example is The Wizard of Oz. The sepia-toned beginning of the movie shows just how antiquated the Kansas farm life is, both to Dorothy personally and in the general sense. Speaking of Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Oz film from 1939 was a very critical point in time for film history, and even more so with this argument. Like I said, the contrast between the sepia-toned introduction and the rest of the very brightly colored movie only makes each part stand out even more. Past that, the colors were used in a very intentional way. The yellow brick road, the red shoes, Glinda's pink dress, the Wicked Witch's entire appearance. All of the symbolism is pretty easy to grasp, too. The yellow road is to show optimism in Dorothy's journey. The red shoes are that inner power that she had all along. And then the whole black and green color scheme of the Wicked Witch is a very obvious notion to just how wicked she is. Glinda's pink, white, and silver getup is meant to be the complete opposite of this, with innocence, femininity, goodness, those type of traits. Of course, these two meanings specifically, Glinda and the witches, carries over to the Wicked movies too. In fact, they're the center of the plot. Kind of. You'd think that a movie that's based in one of the most significant and colorful movies in pop culture would also be colorful. Especially with the new focus on Elphaba, the Wicked Witch, and her skin, and then Glinda's very pink style. Except it's not. It's really not, even compared to the musical. They had so many opportunities to play with color in this movie, and I feel like much of them were completely dashed away. Even with what they did take advantage of, the meaning of their color usage is so hard to find with just how dull and dreary it all is. For example, there are a couple scenes that play around with pink and green lighting. When Elphaba is shown in pink lighting, she looks painfully average and human, the pink canceling out her green skin tone. And then when Glinda's shown in green lighting, she looks like Elphaba, kind of. Surely this is meant to mean something. Glinda's covered in green lighting after she commits her most cruel act of the film, tricking Elphaba into embarrassing herself at the dance. So perhaps it's to show that she's the wicked one, or to show Glinda's change of heart and how she views Elphaba as a person. Honestly, to me, I didn't even notice that she was supposed to look green in this scene until someone pointed it out online. Both of these possibilities completely flew over my head the first time I saw this. I hardly even noticed that it was intentional in the first place because of how it hardly looked green. Glinda specifically really gets the short end of the stick here when we're talking about color and the craft of making this. Many of her dresses and outfits are so very desaturated. If everything else around her wasn't so dull and beige and brown so much of the time, you'd hardly be able to tell how pink she's supposed to be. The Munchkins are more brown than anything else, especially compared to the colorful spectacle they helped create in the 1939 film. I could go on forever about my dislike of color in Wicked. Instead, though, I want to point out a good example of color within movies where each character gets their own signature color. Heathers. Heathers, for those of y'all that don't know, is a movie about a high school senior, Veronica, that finally gets her in with the popular crowd. 3 girls, all named Heather. If you can't tell, it takes place in the 80s. However, she very soon tires of this popularity and looks for a new source of novelty in the new boy that started attending, Jason Dean, or JD for short. He's brooding and witty and strong, and she's swooning from the moment she sees him, nearly. Only plot twist, he's evil, and more evil than most brooding emo men are because he's a serial killer. Well, they end up killing the lead Heather, and then they go on a bit of a killing spree before she comes to her senses and stops him to put an end to all of it. My favorite part of the movie isn't how pretty Winona Ryder is, though that's pretty high up on the list, but instead it's how much the director embraces color. Each of the main characters has their own signature color. Heather Chandler, the lead girl, has red. Heather Duke has green for envy. Heather McNamara has yellow for supposed innocence. Veronica has blue, and JD has black. The most dynamic of these signature colors is with Veronica's wardrobe. At the start of the movie, she's nearly in a monochromatic blue outfit. A lot of the time, too. And I love me a 100% blue outfit. Anyone who knows me personally can attest to that. It's a staple in my closet. However, as the story goes on and she gets more and more entangled with JD, her outfits get darker, with more and more black pieces included within them. There's also multiple scenes that play with blue and black lighting to show this blend of the two characters. Even better than that, you can still clearly see what's happening even in the darkly lit scenes. It's amazing! Another interesting point of color symbolism in the film is with Heather Chandler's scrunchie specifically. She wears red all of the movie, obviously, like every character, and it's to show her power over the rest of the group and the school at large. But after she's the first to die, her scrunchie and the color red linger as a symbol of her empty spot of power that now needs to be filled. Heather Duke, for the most part, takes over this red color, dressing in red pretty much right after Heather Chandler dies. However, the characters, namely Veronica and Heather Duke, fight over this scrunchie for the rest of the movie. Duke takes it and wears it for much of the film with her red outfits, and she turns out to be just as cruel, if not worse, than Heather Chandler was. I guess the scrunchie was cursed. By the end, Veronica defeats JD, and she simply just snatches the scrunchie away from Duke, symbolizing how she doesn't really care about the high school social hierarchies anymore, and how she knows that nobody really needs this power. But objects, outfits, and lighting are not the limit for color. In fact, animation can take the usage of color in storytelling to a whole new step. I love these movies. Fun fact, I could make a whole series about them. I love them, I love them, I love them so much. I also love, to get back into business mode, the way that they use color within the films. They use it in literally every way I mentioned before, and even more than that. Have I mentioned how much I love this? Anyways, thanks to Trixie Falls on TikTok for pointing out a lot of these and enabling me to rewatch the movies like 8 times. So if you use TikTok, follow her if you haven't already. The earliest example of Sony's clever color usage in the film is to set the tone of certain atmospheres. It's very similar to what Greta Gerwig does in Little Women 2019, like I mentioned in my video essay about Jo March. The Morales apartment, house or brownstone? I'm pretty sure it's an apartment. Is designed in very warm colors to make it seem welcoming, inviting, and above all, homey. It's Miles' safe space. Compare that to the private school, which is predominantly in very cool colors. Not just the stereotypical cool, cold colors for these environments, but cool, like edgy cool colors too. Chartreuse, teal, the royal blue uniforms. It leaves him feeling the opposite of that safe, open environment that his house is. And then compare that to Nueva York and the whole Spider Society layer in the second movie, especially during the chase scenes, and there's a lot of that teal still. This time, it's paired with Miguel O'Hara's signature orange. Teal is elitism, it's discomfort, it's modernity, it's the foreign environment, it's all of it. Honestly, I could do an entire video about the use of color in Spider-Verse. I don't even care if y'all think that's cool. It's going on the idea list. Watch out for that. Speaking of signature colors, though, Miguel O'Hara's other 2 signature colors, blue and red, are used a lot to symbolize Miles's and the audience's shifting perception of Miguel specifically. When he's framed as a hero, he's surrounded in blue. Blue backgrounds, blue lighting, emphasis on the blue in his suit, all of that. And then, the closer and closer he gets to the reveal of Miguel being the villain, the blue shifts into purple and then to red. In the scene where he has Miles pinned down to the train, you can pretty much only see the red of his suit. There's so much more I plan to talk about with this movie, even the colors. Genuinely, I'm hoping that the love for the Spider-Verse series and Sony's successful string of animated movies after it are a sign of a new artistic movement in animation, and maybe even in filmmaking in general. There are so many opportunities to use color within making a movie. On top of that, there's infinitely more examples where color was not just used effectively in these recognized ways, but in ways that nobody had yet thought of. I had to cut about half a dozen movies from the list for the sake of time and because of my condition right now. So I'll do a quick fire of some honorable mentions right now. There's Jennifer's Body, which uses color symbolism in the styling of characters specifically, especially in Jennifer herself. There's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World that contrasts Ramona's very vivid and colorful appearance to Scott's washed-out pastels and gray tones to show his lack of a firm identity. Singin' in the Rain is another very historically significant example, with the 10-minute song montage about 2/3 of the way through being a shining example of vibrant color usage throughout the movie. And Coraline uses both saturated and desaturated color tones to create that contrast between the dreary real world and the fantastical dreamlike other world that the other mother created. And so on and so forth. If there are any movies or TV shows that I didn't mention in this, and you think I should have, tell me in the comments. But as for now, that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. I'm a small channel, so this kind of support really helps a lot. And so does subscribing. Wink wink. Algorithm stuff. So does commenting, although that's not just because of the algorithm. I just love going through all of the comments I get. My channel's still small enough for me to read through every comment too. It's awesome. So thank you to anyone who does leave those long comments, anyone who subscribes, and anyone who simply left this on as background noise while playing Minecraft or doing laundry or whatever. Thank you for watching.